Today I want to have a closer look at the lever lock tools that I made. But first, let's see if we can pick open this 660. So I'm putting in some tension. Lever 1, 2, 3, nothing, 4. Not sure, but some movement there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Small movement from 1. 4 seems in its place. 3. Nothing there. Small movement from 3 again. And it looks like we got this open. Nice, so let's get the tools out and then I'll show you exactly what I did. So let's start with the big wire. It's nothing complicated, but what I try to do is make a reusable handle. So I will show you how I did that. So basically it's this piece. I'm not sure, but I had a few lying around the house. I'm not sure exactly where I got it from. I think it's from like a curtain rail or something. I think you can buy it in all the hardware stores. Then to tighten it, I just put some small washers. That pretty much fit in there. Then a bigger one to make sure that it's more comfortable to hold, and I put one of those wing nuts on it. And it nicely holds the wire in place. And on the wire I folded one end, because then it's very easily clamped in place by that part over there. So in this way I can do a simple like this handle or something more complicated, and I can easily swap wires, because I found out that with lever picking, really, it's a message I heard from many others before I started, you need all sorts of different sizes of wires. So this works out pretty well for me, but it's not the most interesting thing that I did. Then I think the more interesting part is the tensioner itself, and I did a few designs. First I started with one of these guys. They are used to put bolt really tight in concrete. This basically pushes these parts away from each other, and it gets really tight. And it's like nice beefy, it's big, I like it. But I didn't have any wing nuts to tighten it. So then I swapped to this smaller piece of threaded wire that I still had anyway. And like this, I can clamp whatever it is that I have as a tensioner between two bent washers, and that has a reason, because if they are straight, then basically this becomes a V, and it pushes the tensioning whatever you made out. And you can see this one is actually made from a nail, so I filed a groove in there to hold the pig wire. But because it is bent, it actually pushes there, and that means that it doesn't become a V, and actually this part is bent a bit the other way, so it nicely clamps it in place. And by rotating this a little bit, it's pretty easy to fit all sorts of different types of wires and things and whatever it is that you want in it. So that works out pretty neatly for me. I'm pretty sure this will also work for, you know, the pig wire, etc. It's a very simple generic design that works well, and there's nothing else to it, but it holds all sorts of shapes and sizes pretty neatly. So for example, I also made this part from, I I think it's a handle from a bucket or something like that. Can't really remember. But you can actually make a picking or a tensioning tip on two sides, and you can just clamp it in two ways. So as you can see, it's very easy to change the tensioner into something else, and here still there's perfect space for the wire to stay in place. So this design is really simple and it works well, and you just basically have to hammer the O-ring, the washer, or whatever you want to call it. I put it in a vise, clamped it halfway, just gave it a whack with a hammer. You just need a slight bend so that you get that nice clamping thing, and it's stable on both sides, so you don't get the V and your tool is not pushed out. So this works really neatly. Then the other thing that I wanted to show is this part, because I wanted to, as much as possible, reuse the same tools on different locks. So what I did here, and this was just one of my attempts, not necessarily the best. I actually like for stability that it's just curved down. It's much easier than this groove cutting stuff that I did. But anyway, it also works. But I wanted to be able to replace the tip. And previously in one of my videos, I'll put a link down below, I made a tensioner that actually has some threads in it, and the threads actually help you to replace the pick tips, and that works well, except that, as Andy Mack already pointed out to me, that's not a lot of meat there left in this nail to thread and then supposed to work. Also, as Andy Mack pointed out, this opening here widens up and the threads just become loose, and at some point it doesn't work anymore. For the wire that I did, or the tensioner that I did earlier, I also drilled a hole in the tip so that I could clamp it up. It's all shown in the video that I will link to. But that's not gonna work, so I needed something else for this very thin part here to clamp different tips in place. And what I figured I could do is I take a small nail, this one, which nicely fits into this hole, as you can see. And I figured if I do that, then I can just make, well, nails, I mean, there's nothing to it. I can make different sizes of it to pick different locks. And that works out really well, actually. The only thing that I still had to do is find a way to actually attach these different parts to it. And then I figured, because there's not much room in the lock anymore, if I cut a groove in there, then what I can do, either in this direction, so that it is flush with the pin, or in this direction, because this actually allows you to come closer to the hole in the back of the lock. If I just can keep this in place somehow, then actually we got things covered. So I managed to do that just with basically a piece of thread. Which I had lying around anyway. So I'll show you what I did there. I place it sideways, and this tensioner is small enough to fit in the lock and a bunch of other locks. I just hold it. I cross it like this, go around, cross it the other way so that it doesn't rotate to one side too much. Hope you can see that. I cross it, etc. Bunch of times it's doesn't really matter too much. And then when I have the end, I just curl it around the end here. There you go, then I pull it tight and it actually stays in place really well. So what I can now do is clamp this back up in the handle part. There you go. And now I can use it in a different size lock. So with the same effort that I put in grinding this nail down, which wasn't that much, you can do multiple as well. I can now actually change the tip. It stays in really well, as you could see with me picking the Squire. And like this, I can reuse the handle, so I can actually do something nicer for a comfortable grip, maybe melt some plastic around it or something. I can tighten it, loosen it, exchange this with, another piece of whatever it is that I want to do. For the wires, it's the same thing. It's quite comfortable to hold it like this. I can change this for something bigger if I want, no problem at all. The same mechanism as I did here could also apply here to the picking wire. And like this, I think I have a pretty generic way to pick all sorts of lever locks and reuse as much tools as I want. So I hope that's helpful to somebody. Thanks for watching. Take care.